Sweet. I got a quick and dirty live session for you this morning. My name is Ren Jones. For those who don't know me, I'm a certified personal trainer. I'm a certified corrective exercise specialist. I'm a certified nutrition coach. I'm certified specifically in women's coaching. I'm a women's coaching specialist through Girls Gone Strong, and I have 3 different certifications in helping women work through the menopause transition. One from Girls Gone Strong, one from MedFit, shout out to Dr. Carla D, and one through Stacy Sims' course, Stacy's Menopause 2.0. I want to talk to you today about things of an adult nature, right? The big 3, as I call them, 3 serious health concerns that if you're properly training in the gym, if you're properly administering nutrition, if you've got a menopause-informed medical practitioner on your team, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll dive into sort of building your network of healthcare professionals. It can really help you avoid these things. Like I said, I call them the big 3, but we're going to talk today about what we can do from a training perspective, because I'm not a medical doctor, y'all. I don't practice medicine. I'm not a wizard. I don't balance your hormones magically. I don't do any of those things because that's out. First of all, a lot of those things don't exist. Let's start there. It's dinosaurs and wizards. A lot of those things don't exist. But fundamentally, I have to operate through my scope of practice. My expertise is in the nutrition, and my expertise is in the training, the fitness training. So I want to talk to you today about the things that I do through my scope of practice that can help you with these big 3. And what are the big 3 that you're talking about, Ren? Are you talking about summer bodies? Are you talking about long, lean muscle? Are you talking about losing weight? No. I'm talking about the loss of muscle on your body, sarcopenia. I'm talking about the loss of your bone mass, osteopenia. And I'm talking about one of the biggest ones of them all, cardiovascular disease. 1 in 3 women will be affected by cardiovascular disease, and the risk of cardiovascular disease increases in the menopause spectrum. It is one of the reasons why I'm here, because unfortunately my own mother suffered a cardiovascular incident at age 60. My mom had a massive stroke, and she was not able to give her self-care until the end of her life at 77. That's nearly 2 decades of being confined to her body. I know a lot of the times we say, everybody's got an expiration date, everybody's going to pass away. But imagine living nearly 2 decades at the end of your life as a person whose children are giving her care. But that's not the dream that my mother had for her kids. If you're a mom out there, that's not the dream that you have for your kids. So I'm going to give you the details, I'm going to give you the insights, give you the scoop. We're going to protect you from those big 3 health issues that are so attached to the menopause spectrum. Let's get started right away, because I got no reason to wait. I don't want to wait for people to come on. I want to give you the information now and help get you going. I got to give a shout out to Facebook up here on my camera, and LinkedIn, who's also on the camera today, X or Twitter or whatever you're calling yourself today, also on the camera, and we've got YouTube on the camera in here. Right here, I've only got Instagram, because Instagram, you're one of my faves, and we're going to get this thing going. Let me pay the bills really quickly, please, because this is what I do for a living, because I'm currently enrolling. I am enrolling no more than 5 women in the midlife transition who want to build their healthiest body, build their healthiest relationship with their own body, build a healthier relationship with food, and do all these things through my 15-week signature program. This does not require any calorie counting. We don't do that. There's nothing wrong with it. We just don't do it. No calorie counting, no macronutrient counting, no weighing or measuring food. That's not the methodology that we use. If that sounds like you, this sounds like a good 15-week program that might help you become stronger and healthier and more resilient through your menopause spectrum transition, DM me the word live. Let's get into the information though, because I don't want to delay. So the first thing that I'm looking at is something called sarcopenia. It's age-related muscle loss. And sarcopenia is not limited to the menopause spectrum by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, men go through it as well. Typically age 30 or better, the body naturally starts to lose muscle. I've heard rates as much as 3 to 8% of muscle per decade. I believe I got that one from the Girls Gone Strong menopause certification course. But effectively, on the other side of 30, your body will naturally stop building muscle unless otherwise intervene. That's why we strength train y'all to keep that muscle. At 50, I got a little muscle left on me, right? So age-related muscle loss is problematic long term because this is how grandmother, grandma, mama, abuela, this is how they ended up feeble towards the end of their lives, that unable to do things like get in and out of the bathtub. When you're not able to sit down and stand up off of the toilet, these are the things we're trying to avoid by helping you preserve the muscle that's on your body. We don't want you dealing with age-related muscle loss over the course of your life. So in the context of your training, we want to protect you from having to deal with this altogether. What can we do? What can we do at this point, Ren? Is it, I'm already 40, Ren, is it too late? I'm already 55, Ren, is it too late? I'm already 65, I'm already 70, is it too late? Absolutely not. Your body is resilient, and if we give it the right stimulus, it wants to give us the result that we want to get from it. Your body's always sort of ready to respond to what you give it. The problem is we stop giving it stuff to respond to so early in life, and then when we get later in life and we have a little bit more difficulty moving around or doing things, we figure, well, that's it for me. Life's over. Give me the rocking chair and a death blanket. I don't want you to feel like that in the context of how these changes are occurring in your body. I want you to know that you have the ability right now today to make a big physical U-turn as long as you're guided properly, as long as you don't hurt yourself as you're taking that U-turn. These are things that can really have a great effect on. So again, let's talk about the age-related muscle loss. Number one, if you've never heard me say this phrase, I stole it from somebody smarter than me, but muscle is the new 401k, right? Muscle, delicious. Muscle is the new 401k. Your retirement plan, your longevity plan, your future travel plans, your future enjoyment of your spouse in your golden years, that's all predicated on muscle, hard-earned muscle. Because if you can't move, if you can't control your body through space, if you can't move your feet to dance, if you can't sit down and get off of the toilet, you're probably going to be in a situation where you're being administered long-term care. And who wants that? Again, I went through that with my own mother. My brother gave my mother care until my brother died of a heart attack. My sister gave my mother care until my sister died in a car accident. My brother-in-law, my sister's husband, gave my mother care until he started to refuse his own dialysis out of grief, and he died. And then I was last. And by the time I came around to give my mother care, she was in such a state that she needed long-term care, and it was palliative. Palliative meaning leading up to end of life care. Nobody wishes that for the children. I don't think any of you wish that for yourself. So what can we do? A1, upper left-hand corner of the page, we can strength train, right? If strength training is something that you've been avoiding most of your life, something that feels frightening to you, something that feels like it's foreign to you, this is a great time to slowly start to bring strength training in your life. And I do not mean that you need to get up off of your couch today, go to your local gym, lift the heaviest barbell over your head that you can possibly do. There are ways to ramp up to this. Strength training can be as simple as pulling a chair from the dining room, sitting down in it, and standing up 10 times a day. You're strength training. You're resistance training. You're resisting the force of gravity that wants to pull you down, and you're getting up. Strength training can be bench pressing on a bench, but it can also be you pressing up against a wall, a vertical wall. Stepping a step or two out, placing your hands on the wall, and pushing away from the wall. That's a great introduction to strength training. As a personal trainer, as a certified personal trainer, who's also a corrective exercise specialist, I have a certification there too. I'm able to help you devise workouts that allow you to build strength incrementally based on where your skill set is at any one time. So you don't have to jump into flying. You can crawl into walking first. That's absolutely okay, because surprisingly, when you start to give your body this type of stimulus, it's going to start to respond. That's what it was made to do. Your body was made to adapt. We just need to give it the stimulus long enough and the correct stimulus to get it to do what we want it to do. Look, if I said, I'm going to pay you $100,000 if you can make your fingertips wrinkle, most of you would just go, maybe get in the bathtub or maybe soak your hands in water, because you know when you soak your fingertips in water long enough, they're going to wrinkle. That's your body adapting to this stimulus. But you also know that if you just went and washed your hands really quickly and dried them, and you looked at your fingers, they won't be wrinkled. It's because you didn't give your body the stimulus for a long enough period of time to adapt. So fundamentally what strength training is, it's simply the art of knowing what thing that I give your body is going to cause it to respond in the way that you want it to, and then sort of mitigating for anything in between that could be an obstacle, a challenge, something that we need to work around. Previous injuries, high blood pressure, lack of equipment. That's fundamentally what I do as an online trainer. It's what most trainers do, online or otherwise. So we want to avoid sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, because it's really going to compromise the rest of your life. You don't want to be feeble. You don't want to be a person who can't get in the bathtub or out of the bathtub or sit down on the toilet or get up from the toilet. And one thing that's prevalent during the menopausal spectrum is the age-related muscle loss has a tendency to accelerate if it's not attenuated. And again, we can help you with this just by having you ease into a strength training plan. And this depends on your level at the time, how healthy you are at the time, how much muscle you have at the time. But there is no situation where you're in such a state that you absolutely cannot start to integrate strength training into your life. It's just a matter of a compassionate, considerate fitness professional taking where you are, meeting you where you are, and incrementally giving you more and more stimulus over time. We call it progressive overload. That will allow you to get stronger and stronger over time. So the first of that big three that adequate training can help you avoid and allow you to live your life better is sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss. And the way that we get around that fundamentally is with some strength training. And that strength training is based on where you are at any given moment and slowly increasing the intensity of what you're doing. No, you don't have to have a gym. You might only need a wall and a chair in your home. But any good coach should be able to take you through that process so that when you're 70, 80, 90, you're not dependent on people to help you get around, because that doesn't have to happen. It's common, but it's not normal. That's the first of the three. Number two, bone. Age-related bone loss. This is two of the big three as I see them as a personal trainer who works with women through this midlife spectrum. Osteopenia is age-related bone loss. So we had the sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, osteopenia, age-related bone loss. Also could start around your 30s. And this is also something that you might remember when you were dealing with grandma or grandmother or big mama or abuela or mama, whatever name you had for your grandparent. You may have known that this individual in your life broke something. They broke an arm, or they broke a hip, or they broke a leg, unfortunately. And for most women going through the menopausal spectrum, there's a tendency to have fractures at the low spine and fractures of the hip. We don't want you to do that. We don't want you feeble with the muscle loss. We also don't want you brittle with the bone loss. So the rate of incident of breaking a bone increases drastically as you're transitioning through the menopause phase, perimenopause to menopause to postmenopause. How can we avoid that, Ren? I'm glad you asked. I've got just the answer for you. Jump training, impact training. Pickleball is a great tool against osteopenia. And I love it because pickleball is sort of the low-hanging fruit. It's not quite as expensive as something like tennis. It doesn't require a high level of skill. But what pickleball does, and this isn't the only solution, but it came to mind first. What pickleball does is it calls you to move in multi directions, right? Because when we're looking at the type of training that's going to help you reinforce and regrow bone, did you know your body did that? You didn't even know your body did that, did you? Your body can regrow bone. So the type of force that's going to help with that is a multi-directional force. Now, I like to look at things like jump training, impact training, and I don't mean you jumping up on a 20-foot box in the gym, because I know we're all at varying levels of expertise and movement pattern. But you could something as simply as jumping forward 2 inches forward, jumping 2 inches backward, jumping 2 inches to the side, and I don't mean vertically, I mean that far out. Those things can help reinforce your bones because it creates impact against your skeletal system, and your skeleton wants to adapt to that impact. And as an adaptation to the impact that you're making on your skeletal system, it will what we call regrow. It'll remodel, reform bone, because your skeleton comes through in cycles. So at some point, I don't want to get too sciencey. But at some point, as you're maintaining impact against your bone, it's going to go through a cycle of regrowing and coming back more dense. One thing that I really advise for every woman over 40 is to get a DEXA scan. DEXA. You can usually find these at your local facilities. You can probably just Google DEXA scan and Google your zip code or Google your city, depending on how remote a location you live in. Everything ain't everywhere, y'all. But you can get a DEXA scan done, and it's going to give you an imaging of your bone density. It'll tell you where you are in terms of your current age, in terms of your bone density, and the medical professionals can continue to help advise you. We don't want you going out hopping around on bones that are already brittle, obviously, but there is a plan that can be put in place to help you recover your bone, man. You want to be strong and sturdy. You don't want to fall and know that every single fall you're ever going to make is going to lead to fracture. That's no way to live. So I'm looking out for age-related bone loss also as a menopause-informed personal trainer, nutrition coach, corrective exercise specialist. And again, the way that I help get that accomplished is with some impact training. I practically always include it in my clients' programs. And you only need, here's the kicker, you only need 10 minutes 2 or 3 times a week of this. Like, you're not making impact training your life, which is why I said if you love pickleball, or if you like to play basketball, or if you like to play tennis, or if you like to jump rope multiple directions, those things are great for increasing your bone density and increasing your and filling up your fountain of youth with magical water, right? Because you don't want to be brittle at the end of your life. You don't want to be brittle now. A lot of people are brittle right now at this point in their life. So consider that. One question that I always get when I talk about this particular subject is, Ren, what about running? Will running help me with the brittle bones? And the answer that I've been taught to give through my certification, my 3 different menopause certifications, in addition to all my other ones, the answer I've been taught to give is no, running doesn't do as great a job as reinforcing those bones, because typically it's not as multi-directional as the other things that I mentioned, because we want impact forward, we want impact backward, we want impact from side to side. So running may not fit the bill. I'm not certainly not what I'm saying, but for the purposes of increasing bone density, you may find that you want to do something a little bit more on the lines of pickleball. If not, having just a specific set of exercises in your workout that allow you to do that. That's what I do for my clients through the online training programs that I give them. But that's the second one, sarcopenia. That's the second of the big 3 things that really nobody even talks about when we talk about midlife women, because we're so freaking caught up in the menopause and bikini girl summer at age 55 and all. And I get it. It's easier to, as a coach online working in this space, it's absolutely easier to sell you what you already believe or you already desire, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Or it's easier to sell you fear, right? Fear sells also. It's a tricky spot to inform and educate without fear mongering certain things. So I want your awareness to be in place here, but I also want you to know that you have the ability to attenuate these symptoms that I'm talking about through your actions and activity. Again, the message that it's not too late is what I'm trying to get across here. And if there's a secondary message, is that you don't have to start out going balls to the wall, pardon the pun. You don't have to start out going balls to the wall. Like, there, at every level of your ability, there's something that we can do to help you get started on the road to not being feeble and not being brittle. Third thing, biggest of the three, cardiovascular disease. 1 out of 3 women will die in the world due to cardiovascular disease. It's the number one killer of women. For some reason, we're really very well in tune with cancers, ovarian cancer, endometrial cancer, of course, breast cancer. Rightfully so, those things need to be considered. But the number one killer of women in the world across the board, and it's not even close, is cardiovascular disease. Now, how do we attenuate that through our training and our exercise and our habits, Ren? Because that sounds like something that exercise might not necessarily fix. There's a bit more complex methodology to use here. But one is making sure that we've got some cardiovascular conditioning, right? Cardiorespiratory output, your heart and lung output become really important at this stage of your life. Excuse me. Again, for most women, up through until they hit perimenopause, if they have men in their lives or male partner, what have you, they know that men have a much greater incident of cardiovascular disease. It's much more of a sort of a male-dominated type of illness. Did y'all see I just did tree pose to scratch my leg? I put my heel up. You can't see it because of the camera, but it was a nice tree pose. But we know that typically men will deal with this a lot more in probably the early stages of their lives through 40. Unfortunately, as perimenopause starts to happen, that estrogen starts to fluctuate and withdraw. We know that estrogen is what we call cardioprotective, right? So the incident of cardiovascular disease, the prevalence raises as estrogen starts to withdraw, fluctuate first, but then withdraw through the menopausal spectrum. We don't want you at that risk, ladies. So first, cardiovascular conditioning. That could be something on the lighter side, a walk, a gentle bike ride, swim, etc., etc. I've got a lot of commentary about the Zone 2 training, but I'm not going to deliver that here. It's not the time or the place. But it's not absolutely necessary for women, and a lot of what we see in Zone 2 training is predicated on research, as always, that's based on men. Women don't necessarily need that specific zone because women are already naturally more endurant, and the changes that it causes in men are necessary because men have less of the slow twitch muscle fibers. We don't want to get into that. But in any case, getting some cardiovascular conditioning on one side that's pretty steady. Sweating prevalent when your estrogen starts? It can be. That's such a great question, Jess. I'm going to take a time out right quick from what I'm talking about, because Jess asked an awesome question. She said, is sweating prevalent when your estrogen starts to dip? If you are knowledgeable about that. Absolutely. So here's the challenge with perimenopause. The entire menopause spectrum. And I'll get right back on task, I promise you guys. One of the challenges with the menopause spectrum is how wildly individualized it can be for women. 2 women side by side, even from the same family, can have wildly different bodily symptoms in their menopause transition. So that's one thing. The second thing that's challenging or maybe a little strange or unusual about this time of life is that you have estrogen receptors, ladies, running through all of your body, nearly every system in your body. And what I mean by receptors is A hormonal receptor is how the hormone communicates to the tissue in the body or the system in the body. If you have receptors for a specific hormone in the tissue or that section of the body, it means that that hormone is important to the normal function of that part of the body. You definitely have estrogen receptors that run throughout your entirety of your body. So it's not uncommon just for women to sweat more during the perimenopause phase, maybe into menopause. Actually, it's quite a common symptom that you hear women talking about. Now, usually we hear about night sweats, but sweating profusely during the course of the day, absolutely a thing. Strange things like itchy tongue, unusual things like the feeling of bugs crawling on your body. All of these things are absolutely possible. Let me jump back into finishing up this live broadcast because I was about to close out on cardiovascular disease. So, attenuating that rate of cardiovascular disease. Number one, strength training is great for that. Strength training is really great for helping minimize the risk of cardiovascular disease. So is, of course, cardiovascular conditioning. But we also want to look at sleep. And this bleeds more into lifestyle than strictly sort of personal training. You're welcome, Jess. Great question. Thank you for being here. This trips over into lifestyle, the sleep, because what was it? Dr. Rebecca C. Thurston, who's a PhD doctor, that type of doctor. Recently, she had her team pour over some data from a large study called SWAN, Study of Women's Health Across the Nation, SWAN study. And what they did, they went back and looked at sleep patterns and how it increased or reduced the prevalence of cardiovascular disease. And y'all. So this study went over 22 years of data, 16 visits from over 2,000 women of multiple ethnicities. And what the data showed over that 20-year period was that when the women were generally underslept, their rate of cardiovascular disease increased by 70%. That is unacceptable. In addition to that, the underslept women who had chronically short sleep, in addition to not sleeping frequently, the sleep was incredibly short. Under 5 hours of sleep chronically, they had a 75% increased rate of cardiovascular disease. Those aren't great odds. So I mentioned this so that you take your sleep seriously, ladies, because what set this chain of events off was sleep patterns through the perimenopausal transition for these women. So cardiovascular disease, number one killer of women around the world. 1 in 3 women will experience it. It's extremely prevalent, quite a bit underrated from my standpoint. I know that we have a tendency to focus on cancer risk and things like that, and I absolutely get it, but that's a big one. So the big 3 things that I'm looking at as a menopause-informed personal trainer and nutrition coach. Number 1, sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, making sure we stay out of that place. We can do that with adequate protein, and we can do that with adequate strength training. Osteopenia, age-related bone loss, we can attenuate that also with protein and being properly fueled, but with a little bit of jump training, 10 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week, and then cardiovascular disease, and we can attenuate that with all the things I mentioned before, the strength training, cardiovascular conditioning, but also with prioritizing a few lifestyle things. I didn't mention smoking, I didn't mention alcohol, also contributors to cardiovascular incident, but more so sleep, because I think it's the low-hanging fruit. And I think that we expect that we can ignore our sleep issues and they'll eventually go away, or because we're used to them. You know, I can operate off of 4.5 hours sleep and that. Because we're used to them, we think they aren't problematic, but go see about your sleep, ladies. That's my quick and dirty live. I'll have another live broadcast tomorrow, excuse me, at 8 a.m. Currently enrolling. If you're a woman in midlife who wants to build her healthiest body, healthiest relationship with her body, wants to finally get results from the exercise and nutrition that you're trying, and I know you ladies are trying, the menopause spectrum is tough. There's a lot. But if that sounds like you, I'm taking 5 women in midlife this week. Enrollment ends Sunday, and it's for my signature 15-week program that includes exercise and nutrition and pretty much all the things I mentioned here today. If that sounds like you, DM me the word live, LIVE. We'll have a quick chat in the DM to see if or how I might be able to help you and if my program might be a good fit for you. But I've got to communicate with you. There's no way for me to help you if you avoid having the conversation. So consider that. Until tomorrow, I'll talk to you then. Let's keep it simple. Instagram, good chat, and Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. Thank you for being here this morning. I hope you have an incredible day. Have a powerful day. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.